What were your duties?
Uh, I was more or less a guard. Uh, we would guard the airplanes, and then I was personal bodyguards for two or three generals that we had over there. We would be there. We would go with them constantly. We would be with them. One or two of us would be with them all the time.
And what kind of food did you have?
Well, overseas we didn't have. It was mostly canned food that they would ship in. Very little fresh meat. Any fresh meat we did get, we probably, and fish we would get ourselves by fishing it or hunting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get some deer up in the mountains or something. But other than that, it was all canned food. What they call K rations. A lot of times it was.
Now, describe your living accommodations in any one of the places where you were.
Well, in the States, here when I was in the States, lived in tents, 4 guys to a tent. And when we went overseas, when we were in Burma, for a while there, it was just living in the foxholes, more or less, or our little pup tents that we had. We would have 2 guys would share a pup tent. Each guy would carry half of a tent.
Mm-hmm.
See, and then you'd make your tent that way. You'd buddy up with somebody, you know. But then afterwards, we got back to tents. Mostly I lived in tents.
Okay. How was the morale in your unit?
It was pretty good. Pretty much gung ho.
Which aspects of the war experiences were boring to you?
Boring.
Yeah.
I would be the training down in Georgia, going back and forth over the same routine every day, like.
What did soldiers in the unit do for entertainment?
We didn't have, in the States, when we were down in Georgia, maybe once or a couple times a month, go into town and take in a restaurant or a movie or something like that. When we were overseas, there wasn't much to do over there. We played baseball, mostly, you know, sports. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the guys, they hung at night, they would hang around. Some guy with a guitar or somebody that would play some country western songs, you know. But that's about it. We had, where we were way back in the jungles, there was nothing to do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was no towns to go to or anything. In 3 years, I was overseas, 32 months I was overseas, and I only went on one furlough down to Calcutta for a week. That was the only town that we saw in almost 3 years, 2.5 years, I should say.
Okay, at what point were you most afraid during the war?
No, I'll never forget the night. May 23rd, 1944. We were completely surrounded by the Japs. This airstrip, maybe 2 miles in radius, that we were enclosed, and the rest of it that's all we had. The rest were all Japs all around us. And then in the day, when the daylight broke, the Air Force came and helped us. They clobbered them then, you know, and they were able to retreat, and we pushed them back across this river. But that was the worst. I remember that night.
What do you remember as the worst time for America during the war?
The worst time? Probably at the beginning, when we were really not prepared, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and we were really that prepared to go to war. It took a few months for us to get going, and they lost all those battles there in the Pacific, like, you know, the Guadalcanal and all of that. The Philippines they lost, and Guam and all that. So that probably was the worst part.
When did you start feeling that the war effort was going America's way?
When I got in. I figure that's I'm in, they're defeated now. No, I would say probably after about a year or so, when we got the war effort in gear and got all our troops trained and started to take these islands back, and the Germans, and D-Day, when D-Day came and that was successful in Europe, when they started to defeat Hitler, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, at the time, what did you think about Franklin Roosevelt?
I thought he was a great guy, great president. He was a good leader. He inspired the country, I think, to rally, you know.
Okay, what about Churchill?
Same, I would say. He was great for England. We needed somebody to lead them, and
okay, and what about Stalin? Is that like
Stalin, he was always, you didn't know how to take him. He was our friend then, but our enemy right after the war, more or less, so we couldn't trust him, I don't think.
And Hitler?
Hitler, well, he was evil. He had a goal.
And Mussolini?
Mussolini, he was just a puppet, more or less, for Hitler. Well, as he was siding with Hitler, he was safe, you know. He was just a puppet, I think, you know.
And then the Japanese as a whole? I guess all of them, I guess. Most of them.
Yeah, they were sneaky. Couldn't trust them, I don't think. Still can't trust them, I don't think, today.
And the Germans?
German people?
Yeah.
Well, they were pushed into a corner where, I imagine, where they had no choices, either back them or get shot themselves, or, you know. Yeah. A lot of them didn't agree with Hitler, but they had no choice, more or less.
And would that be the same for the Italians, you think, then? Or?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay. What about the internment of Japanese Americans into the war?
No, I think they got a kind of a raw deal. But at that time, people panicked, and they didn't know who to trust, you know. But when they just came in, and what you see on television now and later what you read, you know, where they just came in and moved them out of the house overnight, just locked up the house and put them in an internment camp. That was a bad deal for them, I think. Had no trial, even though they were American citizens.
Okay, what did you think of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
I agreed with it. Saved a lot of American lives, I think. If they had invaded Japan, they would have lost a lot of American soldiers.
Have any of your opinions changed over the years at all about any of that?
No, about the same.
Where were you when you heard about the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor?
See, I was playing football. We were playing football down at the park down there on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay, where were you when you heard about D-Day?
D-Day? That was overseas in Burma.
And VE Day?
Yeah, same place, Burma.
Were you the same place for VJ Day?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was in Burma then for all a year and a half.
Where were you when you heard about the death of Roosevelt?
In Burma too.
Okay, what were your feelings when you came home from the war?
Glad to get home. Glad to get home.
Okay, how did other people receive you when you came home? Was it like a warm welcome when you came home?
Oh yeah, warm.
What problems did returning soldiers face? Maybe not just you, but other soldiers that you know.
Well, a lot of them couldn't adjust to civilian life, I guess. A lot of them turned to drink. Marriages were broken up from being gone so long, where, some of the wives had boyfriends while they were gone, and some of the guys had girlfriends while they were in the service even, while they were married,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them got divorced, I guess, after the war.
What did, would you have rather not done it all, you think? Or would you, if you had to, would you go again? If you had a choice to go, would you have went, do you think?
Yeah, I don't regret going. I look back on it, it was a good experience. But as long as I came home one piece.
Is there anything else that you can think of? Because that's all the questions that are on there, so I don't know. Is there anything else that you can think of that?
But what?
Just about anything in general, I guess.
Oh.
Well, some mine that escaped actually going to some places because you got sick. You got sick in the States and you were supposed to be shipped out to some place and then you couldn't go.
No, they shipped me out when I got sick.
And then
Yeah,
so you were sick.
yeah, that's why I got that out too. Somebody else was sick, and when I was sick at the same time, they still shipped me out. I met a lot of nice guys in the service, and we still get together now after the war. We still have our reunion every year, and it's getting to be more like a family now because of all the years that we met. The wives and kids know each other a little bit, but so we look forward to the reunions now. We're like family.
So you were in the Pacific then?
Well, yeah, that was considered, Southeast China, Burma, India was just, they call it the CBI. That's the region I was stationed in. And most of our time I was in Burma.
You think it went pretty well over there, where you went for the Americans?
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. When you look back, things weren't really that bad, but a few incidents here or there. But the majority of the time, it was nice actually. Being single, it didn't matter to me where I was, Felt sorry for some of the guys that were married and had kids and that, and they were gone for 2 years or 3 years almost.
Yeah.
And some of those guys didn't see their kids grow up really. But being single, it didn't bother me at all. Well, you missed your friends, family, and that, but other than that.
Actually, this is what it looked like in front of his
Kind of a skinny runt
tent.
then.
These are the pictures from you when you were out in Burma and India then?
Yeah, these are in Burma. These are tents that we lived in.
Tell them about your boat.
Yeah, I've got our boat here someplace. When I was in India, we had houseboys, like kids that were orphaned or whatever they were. They would come on every day and shine our shoes for us and clean our tent, do our laundry. That's when we were in India,
Mm-hmm.
And we would more or less give them pay, and 3 meals they would get to eat with us. After we ate, they would go in our kitchen and get food. So a lot of them got us decent meal that way. This is our ball team. play ball a lot.
So did you play then against other
Other units,
Units?
yeah, they were in there. And all the pictures I got, don't have many pictures. These are the fish we used to get. But we used to go fishing. Those are big, like a catfish almost. I think we had about 50 pounds there almost, you know, those are the big ones.
Oh yeah.
See how big they are? We used to blow them out with hand grenades. We didn't use no bait. We just throw a hand grenade in the water and blow them up to the top. And here's our volleyball games we had, a lot of that.
And there were women nurses over there, which
Well, yeah, there was,
that you had to guard.
right, guarded them and generals. Vinegar Joe Stillwell, general, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's kind of a famous general during the war. Guarded him. Madam Chiang Kai-shek, and she was the wife of the leader of China. A couple times had to guard her.
Well, actually, you were an MP.
Yeah, right. Actually, I was an MP in the Air Force. Then I had this general that was with him 6 months or more. You know, for a good time actually.
Well, see, this one's coming. What time do you think? You remember any time that you thought was like the best time that you had during the war?
The best times?
Were there any?
I don't know.
Just coming home.
Yeah, probably coming home would be the best. Waiting to come home. Had a week.
Well, you went completely around the world.
Yeah, I went around the world. Sailed around the world. Not many guys did that. Yeah, coming home probably was the best time.
Just you guys got home, you went the other way instead of just coming straight back across. You guys went all the way around.
Yeah, I left San Francisco, and I went to Australia, and then from there we went to India. Well, then I spent all that time in India and Burma, and when I came home, we left Calcutta, India, and we went to the Suez Canal, Mediterranean Sea, and landed it back in New York City. And ended up back at Fort Sheridan, which is right down here in Illinois. Started out there in February 1943, and I came home January 1946. Back to Fort Sheridan and home. Almost 3 years, 35 months. I was gone.
Were you 18 when you went in?
Yeah, I was 18 when I went in.
How long?
6 weeks for basic training.
And then you were.
Then I went down to Georgia. Now when they got it right on there.
If there's anything else you can think of out there?
So the fighting wasn't actually being done in India when they
No.
sent you to fight. They sent you to Burma.
Burma. Right.
How did you get there?
We had a fly-in. It was the only way in was to fly in. We were over 100 miles behind the Jap lines. They captured. Have you ever seen the movie Merrill's Marauders?
No, and
No? There's a movie, Merrill's Marauders. It's been on television, I don't know, like Jeff Chandler plays in it. But anyway, this Merrill's Marauders, they were the first ranger group, actually, what they call the Rangers today.
mm-hmm.
They were assigned to go into Burma. They all volunteered, and we were attached to them. That's why we went to Australia to get them, and they went to India with us. What they did was they went in through the jungle, hacked their way through the jungle, way around through the mountains, and came in like 100 and some miles behind the Jap lines, and they captured this airstrip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then when they captured that airstrip, we flew in the second day. And that was what that May 23rd I told you about. That's when they almost captured all of us, actually. We were just holding the length of that airport and maybe half a mile on each side of the airport that was that what they would call a perimeter.
Yeah.
And that was, the rest of it was all Japanese. So we were back there 3 months or more before they finally, the engineers were able to make a road in. I don't know if you ever heard of the Burma Road. No?
Oh, I don't think so.
No. See, years ago there used to be what they call the Burma Road. And I used to go from Rangoon, Burma, or Mandalay to the mountains into China. It was like the only road that was going into China, to West China. And when the Japs invaded Burma, they cut that road off. So the only way you could get supplies to China, you had to fly them over the mountains, over the Himalayan mountains, which they call it the hump. We did, you know. And these planes, they would fly back and forth to India, to China. Fly, you know, everything that went over, gasoline, ammunition, flown over. Well, and they did was they made a new road. They called that the Lido Road. And that was supposed to take supplies into China. But this airstrip was in the way, this one town of Michina. That's where that Meros Marauders were, that was their target to free so that they could cut this road through this mountain pass, like, you know. And that's, but these Meros Marauders, they were all volunteers, and they were like the first ranger group. After that, they formed the Rangers then, but actually they were like the first, and we were attached to them, Meros Marauders. We were with them. But there was a movie on every now and then.
So when you guys flew, did you guys have a place to land the plane, or did you guys just have to jump off of the
No,
plane?
they landed on the airstrip.
It was just,
Yeah. But there wasn't much of an airstrip. a lot of crashes, a lot of planes crashed coming in. It was so small. The weather was so bad. I had the monsoon season. It rained for 2 months at a crack. But the only way in and out was the fly-in for almost over 3 months before they were able to hook up with a road.
so were a lot of planes shot down when they flew in, or do you think?
Oh yeah, they shot down a lot of planes there, and
You think more planes made it than got shot down?
oh yeah, they would shell us, artillery shells almost every day. We'd get shelled, you know. So we had to live like in a bunker. After a while, first we got there, they dug just a regular, what they call a foxhole, just enough, about that deep, so you could get crawled in there and squat in there, and that's where you stayed at night, like, you know, in your foxhole. Then, after we were there a while, then we dug bigger holes and picked up scrap lumber and stuff and sandbags and put sandbags around it, made like a bunker, like, you know, that you could get protected a little bit better with the shells and that, you know, the shrapnel, and then, like I said, you lived out of these what they called K rations. They'd come in a box. It'd be enough to feed 10 guys. And the boxes were like a Cracker Jack box, about that size. And one would be breakfast, dinner, and lunch. And there'd be D and S, you know. And nobody liked the dinners because all there was like a can of American cheese and some crackers and a lemonade mix that you would mix in your canteen in your water. That was another thing, trying to get water over there, you know, fresh water. We couldn't get down to the river sometime to get, we drank river water, like, you know. We had no purification plants there at that time yet. So you had to go down and fill your canteen out of the river, and then you would throw I forget what they call that tablet, Hallowstone or something like that. You throw a tablet into that canteen, and that supposedly purified the water so you could drink it. But it had an ugly taste to it, you know. So, yeah, and then those breakfasts, that wasn't too bad. It was like an egg McMuffin would be today, like that type of an egg.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't have it. And then you had a packet for coffee, like if you wanted to make coffee. And then the dinners sometimes were, it'd be like a corned beef hash in a can, like, you know, something like that. And that would one box would feed 10 guys a day, you know. But most of the guys would eat the breakfasts and suppers, and they wouldn't touch the dinners too much. Then after a while, then we got established a little bit better. Then we got our own field kitchens and our own cooks and that. And but most of the food there was all canned. It come with very, very little fresh meat. No beer. So I didn't bother me that much because I didn't drink it, you know, nothing. But for a while, living conditions weren't the greatest for about, like say, from when we went in May of '44 into this Michigan till about, I'd say maybe September, October, and finally cleared that whole town out and got some decent food, and not decent, but better than we were getting. But basically, then after that it was a general routine day. It was going to like a job, 8 to 5 job, you know, either be guarding some airplanes or ammunition dumps or generals or something like that, and then somebody would be there for 8 hours or so, and then somebody else would come and relieve you, you know. So it was just basically like a job. And then we went down the line further on again after about 6 months or more, and then we moved on to another town down further, deeper into Burma. Where we got just about on the border of China and Burma. And that when we were there when the war ended.
So did they just inform you then that it was, that they signed a treaty or whatever? Or?
Yeah, we had our armed forces radio, you know, they had their own radio station, the Army, you know, and they would broadcast all the current events, news, play records, stuff like that. Very few USO shows we had come up our way. Nobody famous like Bob Hope, or we were so far back in the boondocks. And then when the war ended, we had to wait to get home. They went on a point system. I think they had to have like 85 points. Those with 85 points would go home first. But you got points by length of service. You got, I think, 1 point for each month you were in service, then an additional point for each month you were overseas. So if you're overseas, like I was 30 some months, that was 60 points right there. And then you got points for medals that, like a Purple Heart. You got wounded, you got 5 points. Silver Star, you got 5 points. And you had a total up to 85, I think. Well, those are the guys that got priority to go home first, you know. Well, then they just worked their way down the list. So the war ended in August, I guess, in Japan was like August something. And then it took me 3 months to get on a boat finally. In December I left to come home. Took over a month to get home. But that's how they sent the guys home, was on a point system. You know, they just didn't send the whole outfit home. You know, you went on a point system. And I think if you were married, you got some points, and kids, if you had dependents, children like him, those guys, they gave a priority to you to go home first. And the guys, like I was single then, you know, didn't matter if I got home in October or November, what's the difference, 1 month, you know. But that's how they rotated the guys home.
Did anything else work like that, like where you got stationed or anything during the war? Did you have anything like that, or did they just pick your unit to go?
Yeah, they just picked your unit to go. So anyway, we played, well, you supposedly took tests or whatever you were qualified to do, but if they needed 50 guys on an infantry line, the first 50 guys that were standing there went, you know, more or less. They didn't bother with your qualifications. Like some of them would, you always see, I was trained to be a cook, you know, here he's on the front line with a rifle, you don't know which end, you know. But that did happen where, you know, some guys, well, we were thrown into combat too, you know. We were an MP outfit, but we were thrown into combat, not directly up on the front lines, but we were right up there where we were being shelled every day, mortars and sniper fire, you know. You had to watch where you walk. You didn't know if somebody take a pop shot at you or what, you know. That's why they didn't want you to salute an officer when we were over there, because the officers are a prime target for these snipers. So they didn't want you to salute them.
So you wouldn't know who.
Right, you know, they didn't want to be recognized as an officer. So.
Was there a lot of like tripwires and hidden, like concealed stuff out in the jungles? A lot?
Not too much landmines, a few of those, but not bad. They had wires out there mostly though with cans and that tied on. If somebody would try to get through at night, it would rattle, like, you know, would try to get into our perimeter, like, you know.
Did they have anything like trip flares or something?
Well, they would throw flares up all the time. You heard a noise that you didn't think was right, they would throw up a big flare, you know, that would light up the whole area there out in front of you, you know, and then you could see what was going on out there. So usually when somebody threw a flare up, then one guy, he would imagine that he saw something, he would fire, and somebody else then would fire, and pretty soon you got fireworks all over the place, and bullets would be flying all over. Well, that's what this one guy used to. I used to once be on duty with him, you know, in the foxhole, and he would say, "It's too quiet. Too quiet. When it's too quiet, the people are moving around, like, you know." So he would take that rifle and go boom, boom, you know, shoot a couple off, and pretty soon another guy was shooting here. Well, then everybody dies for a hole, you know, and nobody's moving around then, you know. Then he said, "That's better now. Nobody will move for about 2 or 3 hours. You won't see no action around here for a while." But yeah, he used to do that every now and then, just shoot one up in the air, and pretty soon another guy would, God, I think I saw something, boom, he would fire, and then boom, this guy would fire, you know. So then, like I say, everybody would dive for a hole, and they'd lay down in that hole while the firing was going on. My one buddy got wounded that way. He was in a hole and he got wounded. A shell exploded right over his foxhole. Fragments came down and hit him. But when you look back on it, you think, oh, that was pretty nice, not a lot of fun. But then again,
It could have been worse.
it could have been worse and not come home, or like some of them didn't, you know. A lot of them, not some of them, a lot of them didn't come home. They're buried over there. And some never found, some of them, they're still missing in action. I got a buddy of mine who lived on a corner down here, around that corner house there. Grew up with him. I was writing to him. He was in England as a gunner on a B-17. And then I got the letter back one day that missing in action, you know. And they never found that plane until about 4 or 5 years ago. They were doing something in Holland, and they drained one of these dikes, like, and there that bomber was sitting on the water all those years, but there was no bodies in there. So they must have bailed out of the plane when it was going down, but they never found anybody out of that crew. So where they ended up, who knows, you know. But the plane they found after about, well, I would say 1990, like 45 years later, they found the plane of our trip, and where we started. This starts in Bombay, actually. We were on the ship 38 days going over. Took us to get to Bombay, India.
How was the boat ride? Was that pretty bad too, or was that?
No, that was pretty neat going over, because we went over on this USS Lurline. At that time, it was the Pride of the Pacific, they called it, and it was a luxury liner, actually converted into a troop carrier. So actually, when we went over,
So it was nice on there?
yeah, we were in the stateroom, actually. There was like 10 of us. And they put me on, us guys on this was actually, it was like a merchant marine vessel. It wasn't Army, it was civilian operated. But the only military that was on there were the Navy, and they were armed guard. They had anti-aircraft guns on there. And when I got on there, they put me on with the Navy as a gunner, 40 millimeter gunner. So I got to have free run of the boat with us guys. We ate with the Navy separate from the Army guys, so we had much better food going over. We had pretty good deal going over. Coming home was a rough ride, though. We came home on what they call Liberty boats. They used to make one a day, I guess. They pounded these things out like automobiles, an assembly line, and they were sinking all the time, you know. And coming home, we run into some rough weather, and boy, that baby, I didn't think we were going to make it with that thing. But this sort of tells where we were. Maybe give you a little idea. Yeah, just to show you. This is, I'll tell you, I think, May 23rd, 1944, the night I will never forget. See, we even got that in there, see? The rest of my life. I thought we were going to be captured. We all did. So if you want to just look at that, if you want to take it home and bring it back. Yeah, going over, that was a nice ride on that ship. That was a big thing. It was actually like one of these cruise ships are today, like, you know, that used to go to Hawaii and the Orient before the war. But coming home, that was on a Liberty ship, and that was just nuts and bolts. And
was it still small, or was it still a big ship?
it was a pretty big ship, but it was small compared to this thing. This one was about maybe 1,000 foot long. It was a pretty big sized ship. But going over, that thing was maybe half the size, crowded. But coming home wasn't bad. But going over, we went over by ourselves. Normally they would go in convoys, you know. But we went over by ourselves, and they had a zigzag all the way, you know. That's why it took so long. Every so many miles they changed course so that a sub would be following them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to lock in on them, and then they had a lot of speed. They figured they could outrun a submarine. That's why we went by ourselves.
So you wouldn't have to wait for anyone or anything?
Yeah. And they told us if you fell overboard, they wouldn't stop for you. We had one guy fall. Well, he jumped. We found out later he committed suicide. And they did go make one swing around a big circle, but by the time that ship could turn, you know, and come back to where they were, couldn't find him. He was gone. They kicked off a life raft to hope that because he fell, but then they found out that he left a suicide note and killed himself.
So how many, did you go home with like a convoy on the way back?
On the way back the war was over, so
So you didn't...
we didn't need one. Then we went in a straight line, you know, as much as possible, but broke down a couple of times. That's why it took about a month to get home with that tub. Yeah, that was nice. That was a nice ship going over. They had movies on there almost every night. Well, every night they had movies, but just mostly like 30-some days, 38 days, he said there, something like that. We were on that ship. Took us off one day, and when we got to Australia to pick up these Merle's Marauders, he took us off the ship for about 5 hours, 6 hours. He walked us through this one town, up to a big park where they had like a USO show. Some entertainers and band was playing and that. But just to get off the ship and walk in on land was it was a treat after. Well, that had to be at least almost 30 days, because from there it only took about 7 more days to get to India. We were on the far end of Australia.
So you landed on the other side of Australia?
I landed twice in Australia. Once in Brisbane, Australia, but we didn't get off the ship there. Then we went down around the bottom of Australia to that, what they call the Tasmanian Sea, and then we got over to the other side of the western end of Australia, not Brisbane. But anyway, then we got off the ship there one day, and then we left the next day for India. When we got to India, we stayed there about 2 days, and finally we got off the ship after about 2 days. We got on the train, and they gave us a train ride for about 2 days. Then we got off that, and we got on a ferry boat, something like you have on the Mississippi, that type of a paddle wheel thing. We went up the river on that thing for about a day. Got off of that, and we got on another train, and it was called a narrow gauge. The rails were much smaller. The boxcars were half the size of a regular sized train. And that took us way up into the mountains. And we were on that for about 3 days on that little train. So by the time we got to our destination, it had to be probably 50 days or more from the time we left San Francisco.
Do you see any fire or anything when you were on any of those, like on the train or on the boat or anything? Or was it all pretty clear going through
I mean,
on the way there?
on the way there, that was times and more. They snuck in a few bombers and strafed the airfield and stuff like that. But they didn't venture out there too far because the Americans had too much firepower in Air Force, you know. So once in a while they would show up, but not often. Mostly it was all ground fire that was by us. We raised this Japanese landing craft that was beached and shot up. So then we patched, a bunch of the guys got together and we hauled it out of the water and got the water out of it, and a couple of mechanics knew engines. They got the thing running, and another guy knew welding. He patched all the holes up, and we had ourselves a landing craft. It was about bigger than this, longer than this house, about as wide as this front room, and we'd go up and down the river with that thing, and it was a wide river. That thing was like Mississippi, like, you know. And we'd go up and down the river, and then we'd do our fishing from there. Throw a hand grenade over and get yourself some fish. Guys really liked that when we got that fresh fish to eat, you know, compared to all those years of eating canned stuff, Spam.
Yeah.
Did you hear of that at all? No?
No.
It's SPAM. It's still on our grocery shelves.
Yeah.
But was a pressed ham, like, and it was in canned, you know, like a canned ham.
Yeah.
And we eat a lot of that. They breaded it, fried it, broiled it, try to camouflage it one way or another to make it look different. You know, what do we got tonight? Spam. Oh, great.
So did you see any, like, exotic animals or anything where you were, a lot of them?
Yeah, there was a lot of tigers by us, Bengal tigers. Once in a while, a couple of times we went on a hunt to, there was like, they say a lot of times when some of these Bengal tigers get old and they can't get food because they lost their speed to run down a young deer.
Mm-hmm.
They had deer up there too, a lot of deer, what they call barking deer, but they only got about that, like a doe, real small.
Mm-hmm.
Once all these tigers, they said, would get old, they couldn't hunt for food. They would attack human then.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of times these villagers came and they said that there's just tigers in that area, you know, they wanted, if we could shoot it, you know. So we'd go out, and these natives then would what do they call that? A drive, like they would get on one end and they would try to push that line towards us guys. I see them 20 feet long, that fat. And cobras, I almost stepped on one. And here this thing is sitting there like this, rung of that cot, and I wake up and I hear this beating, you know, and he's beating the heck out of it, you know. And yeah, that thing was just starting to crawl up. But every night you shook out your bedding because you didn't know if there'd be a snake in your bed, you know. But that was we'd be clearing out an area and they'd say, well, you know, be careful of maybe unexploded mortar shell or a shell, and also snakes. You know, they say the guys are more worried about the snakes than they were about the mortar shells. You know? Yeah, but some of those pythons, that 20 feet long they would be. And one time we were playing a basketball game. We played on dirt, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt. Just cleared out an area out of the jungle, and this guy dribbling on like a fast break, and all of a sudden he stops. You know, here across the court, there's a big python going about 20 foot long. Yeah, I see one guy who shot one. 45 slugs in one before the thing died. And that 45 is about the size of the shell, maybe the slug is about like this, that long, about that fat.
Mhm.
And that's really a good slug. And 6 of those to kill that thing. Snakes, that we didn't like them at all. Then we used to have what they ever hear of a mongoose?
Yeah.
We had them.
To kill the snakes?
Right.
Yeah.
And the guys would walk along with them like a little dog on a leash. They have them, you know. And they walk around the areas with that mongoose, you know. And then he'd go to town once in a while, to the little village or something like that down there. And they would have these, like a fight between a snake and a mongoose, you know. You pay, but the money was rupees over there. They call them like three rupees to $1, you know. And you say, you know, 1 rupee, you want to see this mongoose and snake fight? Okay, you know. They get the snake out of a basket, one of them wicker baskets they had. They pull one out and throw it on the ground, and they get the mongoose and they throw it out there, and you see them, you know. Boy, that mongoose would just be enough to tease that cobra, you know, where it would strike, but just out of distance like that, just. And then finally one morning she go boom, and that guy, boom, all of a sudden that thing had him right by the neck, behind the neck there, and he wouldn't let go.
Did you ever have anything like a tiger or anything come into the field or anything, into your like, base or whatever?
Well, not in the daytime, but at night you see eyes looking at you. You pick up a pair of eyes and you wonder what is that now, you know? And you didn't go out there to look at who it was, you know. But yeah, you could see eyes watching you at night on the edge of the jungle, like, you know, from where your perimeter would be, like, you know. And then, it'd be different. But mostly it was tigers and snakes were the worst. There was some, a lot of elephants too we had there. Jackals, they were all over those jackals.
Were those things a problem at all?
No, not really. They were scavengers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be around the garbage at night there, you know. They would come in close to the area at night if they smell like garbage, you know, from the kitchen and that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would get in close. But we didn't have much garbage after a while. When we were in India there, we used to, when I first went over there, we had what they call a mess kit, you know. You probably had Boy Scout, a little mess kit, about that size, at a top. And you put your food in there, you know, and run through the line in the kitchen. That's what you ate out of.
Yeah.
And at the end of what you didn't eat, you threw in a slop bucket or whatever you want to call it, and then rinsed off your mess kit. They have one 55-gallon drum, like, you know, those are kerosene or whatever, you know. Well, they cut the tops out. One tank would be soapy water, hot, warm soapy water, and you rinsed it off in there, and then you had a clear water rinse, like